Hey YouTubers, this is Diverging Perspective and I am your host, Patrick Penry. Welcome to another video. Today I wanted to talk about funding and I wanted to talk about censorship. Because I was digging around on some of these websites related to these pandemic tabletop simulations. And I found that Clade X, which was a pandemic exercise from May 15 of 2018, and it's another John Hopkins type production. When I was digging around on one of the back pages, I found that it had a reference to who was funding the Clade X simulation. It said Clade X is supported by funding from the Open Philanthropy Project. Didn't think much of it at the time, but when I was in one of the back pages of the Event 201 website, I noticed that it also said Event 201 was supported by funding from the Open Philanthropy Project. Never heard of them before, so I went to look them up and see who they are. Well, here's their front page from the Open Philanthropy website. Who we are. Open Philanthropy identifies outstanding giving opportunities, makes grants, follows the results, and publishes our findings. Our main funders are Carrie Tuna and Dustin Moskovitz, a co-founder of Facebook and Asana. And I found out that Carrie Tuna and Moskovitz are husband and wife. He's fantastically rich. He's from my hometown of Gainesville, Florida. And I noticed also on this Open Philanthropy, not just Dustin Moskovitz, who's the co-founder of Facebook, but there's another interesting person. When I got to the back of Open Philanthropy and dug around on their website, it listed their board of directors as having a Devesh Makan. Dustin Moskovitz, Carrie Tuna, and Devesh Makan is on the board of directors. Well, let's look into Devesh Makan. He is a billionaire financier, investor. Kind of remind me a little bit of Epstein. He doesn't have the reputation of Epstein that I know of, but a similar person who if you have so much money, you have to give him your money and he can go invest your money for you, essentially. Here's a Forbes article on Makan. I'll read it to you. It says, Makan, 41, has turned his otherwise run-of-the-mill registered investment advisory into an exclusive members-only Silicon Valley billionaires club that operates as a cross between a family office and a venture capital fund. His most famous client and the key to his success is billionaire Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, whom Makan met in 2004 when he was a broker at Goldman Sachs. Working his way into Zuckerberg's inner circle when Facebook was still in diapers has proved to be a goldmine for Iconic. That is, Makan's investment company is called Iconic. Already it has full discretion over $1.4 billion in client funds and advises on another $7.6 billion. Yet Iconic's advisory services represent only one thread of the deal-making web Makan has woven thanks to the abundance of Zuckerberg cronies on his client roster, including Facebook's Dustin Moskovitz, Sheryl Sandberg, who's the chief operating officer of Facebook, Jack Dorsey, who's co-founder of Twitter, LinkedIn's Reid Hoffman, and others. But as you can see, he's got quite a number of very wealthy, powerful people on his client roster whom he invests money for them or gives them financial advice. Here's an interesting graphic I found online when I was digging around. It shows Devesh and some of his clientele from the Mark Zuckerberg to Dustin Moskovitz, Sheryl Sandberg, and also others like Li Ka-shing, $31.5 billion. I mean, he's got billionaires from all around the world asking him for financial advice and asking him to invest their money. Very powerful man, this Devesh Makan. And what we know from what I've said so far is that Open Philanthropy funds Clade X tabletop pandemic simulation. Open Philanthropy funded the Event 201 tabletop simulation where a coronavirus pandemic was simulated. And Dustin Moskovitz is one of the founders of Open Philanthropy, and Devesh Makan sits on the board of directors. So these two are directly tied to the Clade X and Event 201 pandemic simulation exercises. I've mentioned Sheryl Sandberg, $1.6 billion net worth, at least at the time of this Forbes article, chief operating officer of Facebook. Jack Dorsey, co-founder of Twitter, $3.7 billion net worth, at least at the time of this Forbes article. And I wanted to show you, again, we're seeing some connections. This isn't all the evidence I have for why they would be censoring any kind of coronavirus posts or videos that have a diverging perspective or a different narrative than what the establishment is telling us. But we see connections already between the Facebook gang, Silicon Valley Billionaires Club, and the funding of these tabletop simulations like Clade X and Event 201. Now here's an interesting Twitter post from Gates that went across my Twitter feed not long ago. He says, "What's next for our foundation? I'm particularly excited about what the next year could mean for one of the best buys in global health, vaccines." From the 19th of December, 2019, not long before the pandemic broke. And I'll remind you that the Event 201 pandemic simulation of a coronavirus, that took place on October 18, 2019. So just a couple months before Bill posts this tweet. Here's another tweet from Bill Gates I found interesting. He says, "It's encouraging to see the first projects begin from our effort to accelerate safe and effective drugs for COVID-19. Beneath, the Gates Foundation has said, we're hoping these first 3 grants through the COVID-19 Therapeutics Accelerator will advance our understanding of how existing drugs can fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Thanks to our new partners, Chan Zuckerberg, at Chan Zuckerberg." Well, recognizing the Zuckerberg, I wanted to know more about this. It's another philanthropic fund, the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, founded by Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, or Chan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. So you see Bill Gates and Zuckerberg they're financially tied. They're friends, they know each other well, they're financially tied. And here's a Wired magazine article. The header reads, "A disease tracker backed by Gates and Zuckerberg tackles COVID-19. So they all stand to make a lot of money from this pandemic. They're financially tied together, they have connections. The Silicon Valley Billionaires Club, Open Philanthropy, Event 201, Clade X, tabletop pandemic simulations." And here's a couple things I've got from Zuckerberg recently. He's really become draconian about taking posts down, and he's been threatening. A lot of threatening's been going on. Facebook to alert users exposed to harmful COVID-19 misinformation. They'll decide what's good information, what's bad information. You're not smart enough to decide for yourself. See, we're stupid, and we need Zuckerberg to tell us what is right and what is wrong, Wow. Okay, here's another one. Facebook will remove content organizing protests against stay-at-home orders, Zuckerberg says. Look, Zuckerberg's going to make a lot of money from these pandemics. Of course he wants you to stay home. He stands to lose a lot of money if we ignore their orders and just open restaurants and buildings and businesses back up and go back to business as usual. He's out of a lot of money. So why is Zuckerberg being so draconian about aggressively censoring coronavirus posts? Well, if they stand to threaten him making money, of course he's going to pull them down. Of course he's going to pull them down. It's not a matter whether it's truthful or false. It's a matter of protecting your gravy train is what it is. Okay, also, Vimeo is known for pulling videos down as well. And when I heard they'd pulled down David Icke's videos, in fact, I think they deleted his whole account, pulled all of his videos and deleted his account because he tried to make a connection between 5G and the current pandemic. We're not saying that there's absolutely no chance of there being a virus, but many of us are saying, look, is 5G playing a role in this pandemic? Because it's interesting that they just rolled it out in Wuhan, right? Just as the pandemic broke out. So I looked at Vimeo. I said, Vimeo's again aggressively censoring videos. Who's behind Vimeo? Well, if you look into it, Chelsea Clinton. Chelsea Clinton is on the board of Interactive Corp. Interactive Corp owns Vimeo. Now, who is Interactive Corp? It's a huge, giant company. It is monumental. Let's take a closer look at them, because when you look into Interactive Corp, not only do they own Vimeo, but look what I found too. And right now, recently, they said all this online dating is about to blow up because of social distancing, and all the bars are closed and restaurants are closed, and it's going to be the new trend is doing the online dating. Well, look at what all Interactive Corp owns in as far as online dating. BlackPeopleMeet.com, Chemistry.com, Delightful, FriendScout24, Hinge, How About We, Match.com, Medic Group, OkCupid, Our Time, People Media, Plenty of Fish, Tinder, Twoo. Really popular names in online dating. Also, thought it was interesting to note some of the other companies they've acquired under this huge Interactive Corp. It's just a conglomerate of all these corporations and companies they own. I thought it was interesting to note Liquor.com is one of the businesses they own, and that's probably blowing up right now, don't you think? And also at the bottom down here, the Daily Beast. I thought that was interesting. They actually own a media outlet, so the Daily Beast I would be pretty skeptical of if I went there to look for any information, right? Okay, now, Chelsea Clinton, mother Hillary Clinton. Here's a shot of Hillary Clinton, Bill Gates. They all know each other. They're all good friends. Barack Obama putting a medal around Bill Gates' neck, and Bill Gates and Hillary, and Bill Gates and Fauci, and all these guys, Bill Gates and Zuckerberg. They're all connected. They're all connected. That was one of the points I wanted to make on this video. And they all have incentive to pull down any kind of media that has a diverging perspective, anything that is against the official narrative, that is going to cost them money. Ultimately, that's really what it means, money and power. They're going to censor that. It's not a matter of whether it's true or false, or good or bad. It's they don't want anyone coming between them and this massive gravy train, the billions and billions, maybe trillions of dollars that are going to be made from this particular pandemic. Okay, here we are. Let's talk about Susan Wojcicki, CEO of YouTube. And here's an article that says she's a destroyer of human rights. She's very draconian about her censorship. I want to include a video here of what recently she said about pulling videos down. If you say vitamin C is a cure, she's going to pull that video down. And so I show you here, I pulled this off of a site online. It says the most effective treatment against COVID-19 that has no risks or side effects appears to be high doses of intravenous vitamin C. And you could also just take regular high doses of vitamin C orally. You don't have to go get an intravenous dose. But point being, doctors know that vitamin C helps for flus, and that's what COVID coronavirus is. It's a flu, right? It's like a flu. So I thought it was pretty crazy that she would pull something that suggested you take vitamin C, which you can't overdose on vitamin C, and it actually will help you when you're sick. It is known. Okay, so I wanted to say that Susan Wojcicki has a sister, though, Ann Wojcicki. I couldn't find any direct connections where Susan Wojcicki is going to profit from the pandemic as far as vaccines or something like that. But her sister's name is Ann Wojcicki. She was married to Google's co-founder, Sergey Brin, or Brin. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. So look at all these Google, Facebook, Silicon Valley. They're all intertwined and all connected. And here's Susan Wojcicki. I started looking into her. It says in an article I found in The Independent, says the Wojcicki family was involved in Google's development from the beginning. So these are firmly entrenched, very wealthy, very powerful, and they have a lot of control and influence, especially over media and what we try to bring light to online. Okay, so Ann Wojcicki, I looked a little further. I guess she was on Shark Tank, but it says Ann Wojcicki is the CEO and co-founder of 23andMe. She co-founded 23andMe in 2006 after a decade spent in healthcare, focusing primarily on biotechnology companies. And that's what 23andMe is. You let them get a swab of your DNA, and they tell you your hereditary past, where you came from, your ethnicity. And I looked a little further into that. Well, they're in hot water already for sharing genetic data with GlaxoSmithKline, right? GlaxoSmithKline, when the company is going to make a lot of money off of this pandemic, no doubt about it. So although Susan Wojcicki, I couldn't find that she owns a company like 23andMe or a vaccine producing company, her sister Ann is in the biotech field and area. So she does have interest in pandemics. She does stand to profit from pandemics in some capacity if you spent 10 years in focusing on biotechnology companies. She has a lot of connections and clout with biotech companies. So if she herself is not directly profiting from, Ann Wojcicki certainly must know a lot of people that are going to make a lot of money off of this pandemic. Here we go. Coronavirus. GlaxoSmithKline and Sanofi work on COVID-19 vaccine. There's GlaxoSmithKline. Hey, that's the company that Ann Wojcicki sharing genetic data with. See how they're all intertwined and interconnected, and they're all going to make money off of this pandemic. Okay, so I want to close this video out. What have we learned in this video? Okay, let's take it from the top. Clade X, tabletop pandemic simulation. Event 201, another tabletop pandemic simulation, funded by Open Philanthropy. When you look at Open Philanthropy, consists of, among others, founders Dustin Moskovitz, co-founder of Facebook, friends with Zuckerberg, and his wife, Carrie Tuna. On the board of directors of Open Philanthropy, who's funding the tabletop exercises, is Devesh Makan, billionaire financier / investor. Devesh Makan owns the Billionaires Club investment firm Iconic. Among his clients, Mark Zuckerberg, Dustin Moskovitz, Sheryl Sandberg, Chief Operating Officer Facebook, Jack Dorsey, co-founder of Twitter. Those are the ones censoring Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo. What do we find out about Vimeo? Owned by IAC, Interactive Corp. Chelsea Clinton on the board of IAC. I showed you a picture of Hillary Clinton and I believe it was Bill Gates, right? So they all know each other. They're all interconnected. The Wojcicki family, we're talking about YouTube. Involved in Google since the beginning, the article said. Susan Wojcicki, CEO of YouTube, known to be draconian in her censorship. Her sister is Ann Wojcicki, ex-wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin. Ann Wojcicki co-founded 23andMe after a decade spent in healthcare focusing primarily on biotech companies, and her company, 23andMe, shared genetic data with GSK. They're in hot water for that, and GSK is getting contracts to make vaccines for COVID-19. So I wanted you in this video to understand the funding, who is doing the funding, and kind of why some of the censorship is going on, being that they all have stakes, high stakes in this pandemic, and stand to lose a lot of money and a lot of power and a lot of face if things don't go as planned. Okay, I hope you learned something today. I hope I didn't go on too long. I've tried to make it as short and precise as possible, and it's taken a couple weeks on and off to put this together because I'm trying to become familiar with some of these names. I've used Facebook before and YouTube and Vimeo even back in the day and had some videos taken down off. In fact, come think of it, Vimeo shut my whole channel down back in the day. And I've been censored on YouTube. You know, my old account, Hattrick Penry, I never could get above 2,000 subscribers. My wife was booted at least twice. She would resubscribe and get booted again. I never could get over 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. So they have a long history of censorship, and I hope you learned why they are censoring now. They have stakes in the pandemic. They have money on the line, folks. Okay. Hey, stay safe, stay healthy. This is Hattrick Penry. Over and out.
Talk about that is raising authoritative information. But then we also talk about removing information that is problematic. Of course, anything that is medically unsubstantiated. So people saying like, take vitamin C, take turmeric, like those all will cure you. Those are the examples of things that would be a violation of our policy. Anything that would go against World Health Organization recommendations would be a violation of our policy. And so remove is another really important part of our policy.